North Vancouver is home to some very cool, classic mountain biking features. Features which require a high level of skill to ride. This past spring, I set a goal for myself to ride all the features that I could. Some of them requiring me to improve my balance and jumping ability before I even attempted them. I mostly accomplished that goal, but there are a few remaining features which are still beyond my skill level. The features are very scary and with serious consequences of falling, but you never say never. A couple of years ago, I began by riding the skinny log ride on Bridal Path, the steep ramp on John Deere, and very minor jumps on Bobsled. At the time, these features were the limit of my skill, but they were great features to practice lateral balance on a long skinny log, leaning backwards for steep rolls, and getting comfortable with being in the air on a 2-foot jump, to prove to myself that I could properly land such a jump. These 3 features were great ways to build skill and confidence with those 3 fundamental riding skills. But over this past summer, I had to ride 8 new trails with more challenging features than I ever rode before. So my next trails to further my skill progression were on CBC, Pipeline, and Pangor. These trails offer longer and narrower skinnies than before, but with only slightly higher consequences. CBC has a long log which is an uphill right turn entry, so be careful not to ride off the far side. The log then has a slight downhill roll which makes the ride a little easier. The log ride also has an earlier entrance via a very high board across a ladder bridge to the root ball of the log, and then a narrow roll down onto the log. The board bridge is probably 8 feet high, representing serious consequences if you fall off. Pipeline has a half dozen ladder bridges of varying width and length, so it's also great skinny practice. It also has a very cool but challenging teeter-totter at the bottom of the trail. See if you can make it tilt down before you fall off. Pangor has become my go-to trail to maintain my skinny riding skill. It has 2 segments of very long skinny features, and with transitions that involve either turning or riding up or down lateral ramps. Pangor also has the hardest skinny ramp, which leads to a steep rock roll with a janky rocky runout. Pangor also has a very cool teeter-totter embedded inside an old, rotten-out log. I also work more on my jumping skills on lower Oilcan and Big Stupid, and on my steep rolls on Floppy Bunny, Crinkum Crankum, and Expresso. Lower Oilcan has 3 very modestly sized ramps, which helps to further my confidence in the air. Big Stupid has a curved ladder bridge about 4 feet high, with a sharp corner, and then a slight uphill segment before you need to jump about 3 feet. Floppy Bunny starts with a double sequence of progressively steeper rolls. Crinkum Crankum has a series of half-dozen steep roll-down ladder bridges. And ends with a log skinny roll that has a left and then a right turn before the roll exit. Be careful of these features when they get wet. Severed D has a long raised log roll that gets so skinny near the end that you've got to nail the line. And then you do a right hand exit on a roll down, so don't be going too fast. Lower Crippler has a number of challenging features. I might even rank this trail as a double block. It starts with a narrow ramp up to a steep roll-down ladder bridge. Next, there's a very cool roller coaster that has an even narrower entry, and where the second hump on the roller coaster is so steep, I fell off it 4 times before I finally got it right. Then even more unnervingly, the exit's on a steep right-handed slant. Yikes! Expresso is particularly spicy in that there are some very skinny uphill ramps to the rocks before you do the steep roll that you see here. The second rock has a left-hand pivot right at the top, which creates the risk of entering into the steep roll without your front wheel being straight. And now here are some features that get even harder. The original entrance to Expresso has a steep skinny into a very rooty, rocky roll with some sharp corners. Ladies Only is a multi-featured trail with numerous ladder bridges, steep rolls, roller coasters, and even a teeter-totter, with a pond beside which I fell into the first time I attempted it. It's now one of my favorite trails. It's fun to ride, but also nicely hones in your riding skills. Boogieman has a short roller coaster, but with a very steep final roll, where I have actually crashed once. It also has a 100-meter long log roll, which at its highest point is about 6 meters, or nearly 20 feet from the forest floor below. Fortunately, the log is sufficiently wide, but you can't stop mid-span because it's not wide enough to put your feet down, so you're committed once you start. To ride this feature, you need to be 100% certain that you can ride the whole way. The Boundary Trail has a sequence of 2 steep ladder bridges with a run out along a narrow bridge over a creek.
So 2 ladder bridges straight down onto this plank across this creek.
So you've got to nail the run out line when you slide into the creek. It also offers one of the coolest raised ladder bridges on the North Shore, with a steep ramped entry, followed by a sharp corner where it's probably 8 feet above the ground, then ending with another steep roll-down exit. Dear John is challenging due to the very rooty rock slab and the sharp turns necessary to get properly lined up for the ramp jump. So this feature's not just about working on my jumping skills, it's also about navigating tight turns and steep rolls. Upper Oilcan has even more extreme features, one which I can ride but a few features I can't. The first is a cool roller coaster with a steep roll down. The second is a very long sequence of raised skinnies connected by a very sharp corner, which requires you to hop around the turn, and then follow a progressively high, long log roll with another turn. Your skinny skills have to be very good.
And this is a jump, a huck.
The third feature is a very steep ramp up to a steep rock roll down, which is probably 8 or 10 feet high. The skinny ramp is probably only about a foot wide, so again your confidence on climbing up a skinny has to be excellent.
Yeah, you got to have a little left turn here to avoid the tree roots and roll into the berm. So the skinny, you carry some speed. Yikes.
And lastly, the feature I've looked at a half dozen times this past summer and fearfully bailed out on each time I finally rolled it a few weeks ago as the final piece to include in this video. For me, the most challenging piece. And as you probably know by now, these features don't look as scary on video as they appear in real life. When you're standing at the top and contemplating jumping in. The hard part of this feature is the very steep roll into this gap jump. For me, it's unusual to be trying to jump from a probably 45-degree descending position. I'm normally doing jumps from a level position. So you feel like you're going to nose in before you even do the jump. Well, that's it for these progressive features. I hope you've enjoyed watching and been inspired to contemplate your own skill progression. These things are achievable if you methodically plan to incrementally progress your skills. Well, thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.